Welcome back to Trey's Anatomy. I'm Trey, current nursing student at Samuel Merritt. Today we're going to go over the CNS and PNS receptors. So I know that this ends up being a really tricky little spot, getting between the alpha and the beta, and one of these constrict, one of these release, one of these do this, one of these do that. It gets really confusing, but what I'm going to try to do today is make it extremely simple to remember. And at the end of the video, I'm going to reveal this little question mark here. It's going to pretty much shorten everything down into one simple deal. So before we start, I want to just I just want you to understand how the nervous system works. And the nervous system is broken down in this way. You have the central nervous system here, and then the peripheral nervous system. So those are branches of the nervous system as a whole. Underneath of the peripheral nervous system, which the peripheral nervous system is everything outside of the brain and the brainstem, which brain and brainstem would be central nervous system because, you know, it's the central area and it's where everything works from. And then the peripheral nervous system is going to be just about everything else, so everything but the brain and the brainstem. The somatic nervous system is going to be everything in your skin, okay? All the nerves that we feel in our skin, the reason we feel touch, feel pressure, all that deal. The autonomic nervous system is then broken down into three other nervous systems. So the autonomic nervous system is broken down into the peripheral nervous system and it's broken down into the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, as well as the enteric nervous system. We won't be focusing on the enteric nervous system, mostly focusing on the SNS and the PNS, okay? So the main ones that we have to learn and understand are going to be the cholinergic system as well as the opioid system, okay? The opioid system, that's going to be ran off of mu, kappa, and delta receptors, but we won't be going over that today. And then the cholinergic system, that's going to be ran off of acetylcholine, and they have the muscarinic receptors that are really important for just about everything inside of the brain and all that fun stuff. Acetylcholine moves the muscles, and we'll go over that next. So we're going to go over the adrenergic system. And adrenergic system is underneath of the autonomic nervous system. It's mostly ran by the SNS, so the sympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is the cholinergic piece. That's why I have the PNS here and the SNS here. Turns out opioid receptors are both of those, and it also works with the CNS. It's a little bit of a weird guy, but we'll work on that another time, like I said before. Okay, so now I want you to close your eyes, and we're going to imagine that we're going on a really nice hike, okay? So we're going on a really nice hike, finally getting away from nursing school. God, nursing school is so tough. We turn around to finally look out at the nice beautiful landscape, see the mountains, the trees, and all of a sudden you see a bear. Oh crap. Bear comes running after you. What happens? Fight or flight, right? So we have the nor-epinephrine and the epinephrine going into overdrive. What is that going to do? So you can automatically think of all the things that you know that epinephrine does. Epinephrine is going to raise your heart rate. It's going to increase the blood pressure. It's going to dilate the pupils. It's going to increase the amount of space that you have in your lungs. Why is it doing all this? It's going to increase the amount of blood sugar inside of your system as well. Why is it doing all this? So we need the increased amount of blood sugar because we need energy to get to those muscles so we can run away or we can fight the bear, right? We need the increased lung capacity or the bronchodilation so that we can get more oxygen to all of our tissues. That increased heart rate, that increased blood pressure, all of that stuff, so that we can finally get all of that nice sugar to the rest of the body so that we can fight or run away from the bear, right? So that's our norepinephrine and our epinephrine, and that's pretty much the basis of alpha and beta receptors. That's really all we need to know. Now we just need to divide them down and figure out where they go, okay? So you can open your eyes now. You probably already had them open, but that's okay. So when we go to alpha receptors, I want you to think contraction, okay? I want you to think constriction. I want you to think squeezing, all right? Alpha, contract, okay? And then when you go to beta, I want you to think release. So beta, release, right? So now we're going to go to alpha. We're going to start off with alpha 1 receptors. Okay, so alpha 1 receptors, we have most importantly vasoconstriction. Okay, so the constriction of the blood vessels. What is that going to do? It's going to increase blood pressure, right? So if you have, let's pretend like you have a pipe, right? Pipe's this big, okay, and the water is rushing through there. What's going to happen if all that water rushing suddenly gets to a pipe that's this big, right? It's going to increase the amount of pressure inside of the system. So it's going to move faster. When we're running away from that bear, we want our blood to be moving quick. So that's what happens, right? Not only that, but the urine inside of the bladder, it's going to constrict those areas as well as the prostate. The prostate is going to constrict there too. It's surprisingly, it's also one of the ways that ejaculation happens. So ejaculation is on there too. I don't know what that has to do with bears, but that's okay. We're going to go straight down to constriction of the irises. So what's going to happen is your eyes are actually going to open up. So the pupils are going to open up. But you're going to ask, well, Trey, you just told me that alpha means contract. Alpha means constrict. Why is it opening up if you just told me it's going to constrict? Well, you'd be 100% correct in that assumption there. But don't forget that we're making the muscles constrict. We're not making the pupils constrict because that's not a muscle. The muscle is the iris, or the colored part around the eyeball, around the pupil rather. So if muscles, when they contract, they shorten, that means that the iris is actually pulling open the pupils, right? So the pupils are now opening up like the aperture of a camera, right? So the camera was like this, and now we get big and open, okay? So that is alpha 1 contraction. We have the vasoconstriction. We have the constriction of the bladder here, as well as the prostate. And then we have the opening up of the pupils, or pupil dilation, okay? So now we're going to go down to alpha 2s, okay? Alpha 2s are also, for all intents and purposes, going to vasoconstrict. Unfortunately, alpha 2s get really, really complicated because we have 2A, 2B, and 2C. And in some cases, they constrict the bronchioles inside of the lungs, which are just the little tubes inside of the lungs. And in some cases, they open them up. But what we're going to focus on is the fact that it vasoconstricts as well. So alpha 1, vasoconstriction, alpha 2, vasoconstriction. There is another piece inside of there about the synapses also getting blocked, but again, we're going to worry mostly about the vasoconstriction, okay? So now we get to move on to beta. So remember, like I was saying before, beta, I want you to think in your brain, release, dilation, okay? That's mostly for beta 2s. But now let's talk about what happens with beta 1s, okay? Beta 1s, when innervated or agonized or turned on, you know, there's a million different words that we can use. It's going to increase the heart rate. It's going to increase the contractility, and it's going to increase the conduction velocity. What does that mean? Heart rate means just how fast the heart is pumping out, right? How fast is the heart pumping out blood? Same thing with contractility. Contractility is just how hard it's squeezing to pump out all that blood, okay? So that muscle's squeezing really hard to pump out more blood. Then the conduction velocity is similar to the heart rate. It's just how fast the nerve impulses are going through the heart to make it do that contraction, okay? Then we move on to the kidneys. Now this is a really, really important one here. So the kidneys, when beta 1 agonists are involved, so that means it's turning it on, agonists turn on, it will allow for the kidneys to release renin, okay? Renin is a part of a very, very fun and interesting system called the renin-aldosterone-angiotensin system, or RAS system, okay? So that's the very, very beginning of the RAS system, is when the kidneys push out renin. And then there's a whole nother set of events that happen after that. So what we need to know about renin is it increases the heart rate or the blood pressure, okay? It increases blood pressure. So all these things here in beta 1, when they turn on, they're increasing the blood pressure, increasing the heart rate, increasing the conduction velocity, increasing the contractility. So they're making everything squeeze harder and move all that stuff through the body. Why? Again, we're getting chased by a bear, right? So we have to make all this stuff go up. We have to. If not, we're gonna die, right? So now we go over to beta 2, okay? So beta 2, we're going to have the dilation or the release, beta release, mostly for number 2, okay? Beta release, right? So now we're talking about the lungs, okay? We have 2 lungs, beta 2 lungs. Beta 2 is going to allow for bronchodilation. Bronchodilation is just a funny, fancy word of saying that all the little tubes of air, the little straws that the lungs have, will now increase in diameter or get bigger. So what happens when you have more space for air to go through? Well, you have more oxygen, right? We need that oxygen. We're running from the bear. We're fighting the bear. We got to have that good cardio, right? Cardio? Yeah, I guess. And then now we're going to have vasodilation, okay? Now this gets a little confusing now. We're also going to have uterine dilation. We're also going to have bladder dilation. The everything inside of the bladder is going to dilate, okay? We're also going to have glycogenolysis, okay? Glycogenolysis happens in the liver. And what does glycogenolysis do? Well, let's break it down. So we see glycogen right here, right? Glycogen is just a fancy word for sugar, okay? So sugar, when it gets put all together, you know, you have glucose. Glucose, when it gets packed into a nice little space, it's going to be turned into glycogen, which is just a longer chain of sugars, more packed up tight. And then lysis is going to be the cutting of the glycogen. So when we cut down the glycogen, we're going to make glucose. And all that glucose is going to be free to go through the blood, okay? So now we're fighting the bear. Now we have a bunch of sugar inside of our system. Now we have like a little sugar rush and we're able to fight the bear, okay? Glycogenolysis, okay? So let's go back real quick. So we have the alpha 1s, alpha 1, vasoconstriction, bladder constriction, prostate constriction, ejaculation, and pupil dilation. Okay? Then we have the alpha 2. For all intents and purposes, we're going to do vasoconstriction. Okay? Now we have beta 1. Beta 1 is going to do 3 things for the heart. It's going to increase the heart rate, it's going to increase the contractility, and it's going to increase the conduction velocity. Okay? Then it's going to do 1 thing for the kidney. It's going to increase the secretion or the pushing out of renin. Okay, now we have beta 2. Beta 2 is going to dilate the bronchioles inside of the lungs, allowing for more oxygen to run through. We also have uterine relaxation. We also have bladder relaxation. We also have the glycogenolysis that happens inside of the liver, right? The breakdown of sugars and allowing for more sugar to be available. And then we also have the vasodilation, okay? So now let's go over really, really quick, just because now we're really strong with this stuff. Now let's go over the quick medications. So something that's going to block alpha receptors is going to be the OSIN medications. So it's going to prevent these from happening, okay? Then we're going to go over to here. We're going to talk about the allol medications. This one I like to talk about a little bit more because it's super, super common. Metoprolol, propranolol, all those guys, those are going to be specifically blocking beta receptors. But now, this is where we get into the fun stuff, okay? So we have the ability, and the science is just baffling. Pharmaceutical magicianry, I guess. We have the ability to make it so that we only target one of these receptors, okay? So metoprolol is one of those medications. Metoprolol only targets this one right here. So we call that cardioselective. It only responds to this piece here, okay? So it's going to stop the beta 1 receptors on the heart specifically, and that's going to lower the heart rate. That's going to lower the contractility. That's going to lower the conduction velocity. So because let's say somebody has really high blood pressure, we're going to give them metoprolol. Metoprolol is going to lower the heart rate. It's going to lower the contractility. It's going to lower the conduction velocity. Okay? So now what happens if I gave a patient a medication that wasn't cardioselective like metoprolol is? Well, I give them propranolol, right? What's the problem with that? Well, nothing. It's going to do both of these. It's going to touch on both of these. So it's going to lower the heart rate just like it would anything else. It might have some effects on the lungs. It might have some effects on the glycogenolysis. Maybe. But where we run into problems now is if the patient has asthma, okay? Let's say the patient has asthma. What happens in asthma? And this is a really, really big NCLEX question. I see this on so many exams in school. Oh, you're going to give this patient propranolol, but they have asthma. What are you going to do? Well, I'm going to contact the doctor, say, hey, Dr. So-and-so, did you see that the patient is COPD, or the patient has asthma, or the patient has issues with their lungs, and you gave them propranolol? Doctor's going to be like, oh, didn't even see it. You're 100% right. Let me call in metoprolol. Right? But why? Why? So if I gave a patient that has bronchoconstriction already, which is the constriction of the bronchioles, so their bronchioles are already really small because they have asthma, or they have asthmatic attacks that make them go small, then I gave them propranolol, which is going to cut or stop the action at beta 2, what's going to happen now? Well, beta 2 by itself, when it's agonized, it's going to increase the diameter of the bronchioles. Well, now I'm going to do the opposite. I'm antagonizing, I'm stopping this from happening. So yeah, propranolol, it's going to lower their heart rate. But because this patient has asthma, it's going to close down the bronchioles even more than they already are with asthma. Big no-no. Got to keep that airway open, okay? So propranolol is not a good indicated medication for somebody that has asthma, okay? And like I said before, I'm happy that you stuck towards the end of the video. I have a really nice and really fast system of memorizing this. Ooh, that worked. Okay. So everybody knows their ABCDs, right? ABCs. We're going to go all the way to A, B, C, D. I put them in different colors for this specifically. I got this from Med School Bro. He's got like 43,000 views on this one video explaining this specifically, and he does it in a short, and it happens all in 5 seconds, and it was a phenomenal video. So it's really, really hot here in Sacramento right now. Today it was 101 degrees, and you know, if you don't have AC, you're gonna have a bad day, okay? So AC, bad day, right? So alpha A constricts, contracts, right? AC. And then beta dilates. So bad day, beta dilates. Beta is going to dilate. All right? So there you go. ABCDs makes everything super, super fast. A, B, C, D. No AC, bad day. All right? So that is pretty much it. Feel free to draw this out whenever you take your next test. I believe in you. If you're studying and you're learning this all for the first time, this is a phenomenal way to organize your thoughts. I hope you have a phenomenal day. Love y'all. Peace.